What up, boyos?
What?
Say what up, boyos.
Where'd you go?
Make some food.
What gives us the right to talk about anything?
Wow.
What the fuck are you watching?
Have you ever really noticed how sometimes a new product isn't really all that new? This kind of thing has happened before, and the funny thing is it's not like people don't notice. Just look at AMD with their Pitcairn family of GPUs back in 2012 through 2015. That was 3 whole generations of basically the same card under different names. And it's not just AMD that pulls this rebranding and rebadging BS. All the big players do it. NVIDIA, Intel, you name it. So why does rebranding and rebadging BS? All the big players do it through 2015. AMD with their Pitcairn family of GPUs back in 2012 through 2015. That was 3 whole generations of basically the same card under different names. And it's not just AMD that pulls this rebranding and rebadging BS. All the big players do it. NVIDIA, Intel, you name it. So why does it keep happening? And why is AMD releasing a GPU for the 3rd time again? I think we have got the answer. Origin PC builds custom desktops and high-performance laptops with free lifetime 24/7 tech support, and they only use high-end components like Samsung's 970 EVO Pro M.2 SSD. Visit Origin PC today at the link below for a special promo. Okay, so it's not like every product you buy is a straight re-release. Sometimes we get a high-end product in one generation rebadged as a mid-tier one in the next, like the GeForce GTX 680 being rebranded as the GTX 770 with a mild clock speed bump. And we'll also usually see a token price reduction to go along with that. Honestly, no problem with that. It's a good way to get rid of old stock, and it's good value for the consumer. Win-win. On the other hand, when a product gets positioned the same way that it was during the previous generation, a lot of negative press almost always comes along with it. One need only look at last week's Core i9-9980XE, which Intel billed as 2 generations higher than the 7980XE that it replaced, even though all they did was tune their existing chip. So then, if that's the case, why does anybody do this? I mean, it's not free to launch a product. It's actually more expensive than you'd probably think. You have to pay for advertising with partner websites. You've got to seed units to OEMs for validation. You've got to jump through all the regulatory hoops involved in getting FCC certification and the like. You've got to get new UPC and EAN codes. And if you've pushed clock speeds higher, you might even need to design and manufacture a new cooler. Furthermore, if you set aside, I don't know, let's be conservative and say 50 cards to go out to just the popular reviewers at a cost of $200 a pop, that works out to $10,000 all on its own. But believe it or not, that last point is actually where the advantages of rebranding shine through. Now, very few media outlets re-review the product that they already reviewed. So new software driver features and performance improvements can end up buried under the wave of initial launch reviews. So by making that product new again, well, you create an incentive to cover it again. I mean, we're not the only ones who are eager to cover new releases because our followers want to know about them. This drives traffic for the media outlet's channel or site and for that new product. So a hot product release can easily generate millions of views, which if we compare to advertising with a more traditional campaign lasting for a review cycle, yields a savings of several times the cost. So you could have millions of engaged eyeballs that are hyper interested in the product at half the cost of just a million, meh, it's an ad eyeballs. Seems like a no-brainer. Of course, developing a derivative product of something that you already know works is appealing to the bean counters and the investors as well, because it involves less risk.
Well, the R&D budget is approximately $3 billion, and this is the first one. So if anyone would like to buy this, it's $3 billion.
I'm pretty sure that that's no lie. There's a lot of R&D, tooling, and financial dice rolling that makes any brand new product a really risky and therefore potentially costly endeavor. I mean, just ask Intel how their 10 nanometer processors are coming along. You might not even get a product out of it. Now, as consumers, we've kind of just taken for granted that new processes just keep happening. Because even without Moore's Law, Apple and Qualcomm have continued to improve generationally, and then more to the point, tweaking an existing design can result in not only better clock speeds, but also better yields, which further lowers cost as long as the performance is still good enough. So that's another reason that it might be ideal to release something even when it wouldn't be financially viable to R&D an all-new chip, or if whatever's in the pipeline is way behind schedule. So the RX 590 seems to fit that description, since this is our third time seeing this GPU, and the clocks are a little bit higher than before. So this kind of generational tweaking actually worked out great with AMD's second generation Ryzen CPUs. But while Ryzen's refresh had AMD coming into it from a position of relative strength, Polaris refresh, again, appears to be simply AMD's hand being forced because they know that NVIDIA's incoming mid-range GPU demands some kind of answer. On the subject of NVIDIA, more reasons for this whole behavior. NVIDIA has a method of dominating news cycles in a way that AMD, mercifully, generally doesn't. So, do you remember how it took a while after the launch of their RTX cards for anyone to have NVLink SLI numbers? I've actually had experience with NVIDIA going out of their way to make it difficult for reviewers to get multiple cards in time for launch SLI coverage. That way, they get a news cycle for the announcement, a news cycle for the unveil, a news cycle for the pre-order, a news cycle for their ridiculous unboxing embargo, another for the performance review, another for SLI, and then finally another one when RTX games actually finally show up. So, here's the thing, why are we so mad about this? Well, there's the element of time wasting. I mean, we all, the press in general, reviewed the 7980XE, and then we did it again when they called it something new. This makes our lives more boring. We'd rather cover stuff that's actually new. But the more offensive thing about this practice of not naming products properly is that it confuses the customer. And it gets worse. We haven't even really touched on the practice of introducing cut-down products that reuse an existing product's name.